And I want to say something about, there are a few signs. You know, you have to, it's like they have to lead the tea leaves or something. We're at an embryonic moment. The left was smashed effectively in the 1950s, 1960s. It revives with politics that were not necessarily, that were sometimes quite visionary and liberatory, and others looked to societies that were quite dictatorial, and that didn't pan out. And now we have a sort of a rebirth of a new left again, in a context that is one in which there's been a generational gap in experience of how do you rebuild the union movement, how do you rebuild a far left, with what ideas, with what strategies, with what tactics. We don't even have, it's not even like in the 60s where people could turn to their parents who participated in those mass strikes of the 1930s. The large part that doesn't exist for my generation or your generation with their parents. The red diaper babies among us are very few and far between. And I think that what we do need to begin to look at is what the places where there are the beginnings of struggle tell us about where we need to go. And one place that I have to say that is beginning to sort of shine some light on how we can begin to make some change is inside the LGBT movement. If you had told me 10.5 months ago that through a ballot measure in the state of California over an issue as tepid as marriage, it would have exploded onto the scene across this country, tens of thousands of people taking to the streets and actually leading the way, I would have said, I fucking hope so. But I don't believe it. But it happened. It really, really happened. And I think that the posture of this new movement is something we need to learn from. Because whereas the labor movement poured $300 million into the Obama campaign and is now being told, get to the back of the line, Employee Free Choice Act, which is why the labor movement poured that money into the Obama campaign, will be for some other day, perhaps, maybe, sort of, kind of. Whereas people who threw themselves into getting Obama elected in order to get genuine universal health care are now being told that perhaps, maybe, sort of, kind of, a neutered public option might or might not be on the table. And in addition, he's going to penalize the 50 million Americans who now can't afford health care because they have to pay the insurance companies, the private insurance companies, in order to get it. Not working so well in Massachusetts. I just came from there, by the way. These forces are not, by and large, on a national scale, fighting back in large numbers. What we do see, however, we do see fits of struggle. We saw the Republic windows and doors factories in Chicago back in December occupy their factory, a historic occupation, the first time in 75 years that hundreds of workers, largely immigrant workers, Latino workers, who participated in the immigrant rights struggle, took over their factory and won against Bank of America. And now you have small struggles popping up. But where you have a national struggle is inside the LGBT movement. And really what has happened, and I think in some ways, it's almost like a poetic reversal of what happened 40 years ago, where LGBT people who had participated in the anti-Vietnam War struggle, in the civil rights struggle, in the women's liberation movement, and then late in 1969 and early 1970s, begin to stand up and fight for ourselves and form a new movement. This time around, it's almost as if it's on its head, and now it's LGBT people who are at the vanguard of beginning to fight for a new kind of society in which we are allowed to sit at the front of the bus with everybody else and no longer accept this incrementalist, gradualist approach that frankly has won us nothing. Using the strategy that the Equal Rights Amendment activists used to try and pass that does not work. It first was raised in 1923, it was re-raised in 1972, and every year since then, an attempt to get women included into the US Constitution has failed because 38 states have not signed on. That has been the strategy of the establishment LGBT organizations in this country, and that has failed for 40 years. And now what's happening is a new generation that's grown up in the period of cultural efflorescence of gay stuff, where you can turn on the tube and see people who are openly gay and lesbian, where you can have gender-variant singers and gender-bending, celebratory music from Lady Gaga, who, by the way, will be at the march, will be at the stage, along with Cyndi Lauper and others. You can see expressions of this, and people are like, how could we live in a society that doesn't recognize us as equals? We are taking to the streets and fighting back, and that's exactly what needs to happen. about saying we want full equality once and for all. No more gradualism, no more going hand-in-hand for crumbs, no more begging for partial equality. You can't have a little bit of equality. You have it or you don't. And what we are saying to people is quite simply, this is our Rosa Parks moment. And we are going to sit at the front of the bus with everybody else. We want to be included in the 1964 Civil Rights Act once and for all. And that's what the demand of this protest is, and that's why you should be there and organize to get others together. And I want to kind of end on this, because I think that if you look at this sort of model of what had happened with the LGBT movement, that is now coalescing into a march that will then manifest itself into a national network of organizing groupings on the ground called Equality Across America that aims to not only, have common days of action, conferences, all sorts of things. We'll shape it. We don't know what it will be yet. We're going to make it. We're going to figure it out as we go along. The way real grassroots movements actually do it. What has happened is that what groupings of self-conscious individuals who go into action and begin to organize do is actually making a difference. Every politician came out in opposition to this march, most certainly Barney Frank, our man in Congress who thinks that to raise repeal of domestic, Defense of Marriage Act is somehow to be the political third rail in Congress. He argues against people signing on to this repeal. It's an outrage that he should even, be considered anybody's representative, certainly anybody who's gay. He opposed it, the gay press opposed it, the establishment gay organization, which all too rightly have earned the title Gay Inc., who tell you that this movement is brought to you by Citibank or Miller Beer. They came out against it. They have been forced by organized groupings of people, not too dissimilar from the groupings of people who are sitting right here, to actually get on board and support the thing, because they are terrified that they are going to be left behind. That something that the train has left the station and they won't be on it. They at least need to show a safe face and endorse. And now, frankly, the gay press, to its credit, including magazines like The Advocate, which is hardly a radical magazine, or The Washington Blade, or all of these various LGBT publications that came out against the march, are now saying we're wrong, we're on board, and now you go to their website, you can click a button and find out all the information about how to get involved. They have been pushed by people from below. That's what the grassroots movement does, and that's what we need to do in this country on every single front if we're going to get what we need. We're going back to our roots. We are going back to our radical roots of the LGBT movement, and frankly, all of us have to go back to our radical roots. The labor movement, the left, everything has to go back to what it's not. We have to come up with a whole new. Actually, some old stuff is good. Taking over a factory, sitting in, making demands. You can win. You can win, and it works. It works. Okay, now we can tweet about it, and now we can put it out on Facebook. So much the better. It gets broader. It gets bigger. That's what we have to do. With organized individuals, what a handful of leftists, or sometimes only two, in a workplace, or in a college campus, or in a classroom, or in a dorm, or in a community center, can actually shift the tide, shift the debate, shift the organization, and give people new horizons. We're sick and tired of what is, and it's not enough to scream at your television set, go out and get drunk. By all means, you want to go out and party, please do so. I don't need to give you, cover to that. We're like, what, the #1 party school in the United States. But after the party, when the hangover is done, get up, get your friends organized, and get out there and leaflet, call your friends, make some FaceTime, build a group, build a left. We can do this. Obama has actually said, it's not about me. When he stood up there in Grant Park and said, my victory is not about what I've done, this is about you, frankly, I happen to think he's true. We've got to push him. We have got to get together, organize, and push this man to give us universal health care, give us full civil rights equality, give us EFA and all the other things that we deserve. Otherwise, frankly, we are screwed.